started writing as a child, and would write poetry, and that was of course the best way to get cute girls. And then I had relatives that would ask me to write poems to help them get cute girls. I went through that for a while, and then kind of put it on the wayside, and it fell to the wayside, put it on the back burner, and wanted to be a doctor for a quick second until I discovered I was scared of blood and didn't think that would work out. And then I started dealing with reading, and I used to read a lot, started writing again, and I had an idea to write a play for our drama club, and I showed up, and of course the drama teacher looked at me like I was crazy and just said, look, I need you to audition and play a role in Raisin in the Sun. And I did that, and of course that launched my acting career. So that was 14 years old, so I've been acting since I was 14. And I just think it's really interesting how the universe kind of works in a way to sort of bring you back to your original dream. I think it's like really, really important to listen to that. And I was talking to a young brother today who just won his award, and it's just like, you don't know where he's going to end up in 20 years, 15 years, 30 years, but that's where it started. That's where I started. I started reading a lot, and then, lost sight of it. But then it's just, like I said, it's interesting when it comes back. And so at this stage of my career, after acting and directing and producing, now I'm in this new quote-unquote chapter where I get to sort of return to one of my first loves. And it's really cool because now I'm combining it with everything that I do. So for me, it's not an either-or situation. I don't prefer one over the other. I don't have kids, but I always liken it to, do you love one child more than another? Actually, sometimes you do. So it's been a real cool journey of combining, and I think, my acting helps me to become a better director. I think my directing helps me to become, of course, a better producer. I think being a producer helps me to become a better author. And so they all complement each other. So that's why I don't segregate them or separate them in any way. I see them as complementing each other. And so I decided that I wanted to start back in my second or third season of ER. So producers came to me and said that they had the rights to a very famous thriller writer by the name of John Sanford. They said they had the rights to one of his books, so he has a series. And they asked me, even though the character was not written white, they asked me to play the title, the main character. And so I think that's what started my love for thrillers. So I starred in that and produced it, and it's just like, wow, this is really cool. So that kind of laid the seed for writing thrillers to then turn them into television series or movies, and so that's what the end goal is for me, or that's a part of the journey, I should say. I don't know if there's ever an end goal. So the point is, we want to push these novels, because I also, one thing that was always important to me, and I used to talk about this a lot in the very beginning years of ER, it's Black ownership. It's, no matter what happens, and now we're talking about IA, we're talking about so many different forms of technology. One thing that will not change is the need for content. So if we are content creators and content owners, there will always be a place for us. And I don't know that a computer will ever, I don't know that a robot, I don't know that IA will ever completely replace us in there are certain professions that will be eliminated because of this technology, right? And there are certain professions that I have a lot of hope that I don't know that a robot will ever truly master the human condition and the emotion. So there's always, at the very least, there will always be a place for us. So it's always been important for me to have ownership. And so writing is a way for me to have ownership. And one of the last things I'll say is that, I'm in a unique position because I get to learn from all these different mediums. I have, I always talk about learning. Like, if I'm a student of the game, so whatever game I get into, I really study it. And that's one thing I want to tell our young people. Study the craft. If you want to do something, study the craft. A lot of times people, I want to be an actor, and they just jump into being an actor. I studied. I'm a classically trained actor. I attended Juilliard and NYU. I wanted to understand the craft. When I became a director, I studied the craft. I hung out with directors. I talked to DPs. I talked to editors. I followed directors around. They let me come into the editing room. I learned the craft. And now I have this new opportunity to learn the craft of being an author. Not just writing, because that's a different craft. So I've learned, I've studied the craft of writing by reading a lot, by attending classes, by doing things. But I'm also learning the craft of being an author. And a lot of times that's sitting around with experienced people who have been in the industry. I work with Yona and another young lady by the name of Raquel, and I'm just always absorbing. These are women that have been in the publishing industry, because the thing about a lot of people. It took me 10 years to get a publisher. So a lot of times people think, you're a celebrity, it's going to be easy. No, it's not. And that's the thing you have to respect. Just because I have celebrity in one field doesn't mean that it translates into another field. As a matter of fact, sometimes I'm not whining about it, but sometimes there's more prejudice against you, right? Because they're like, when I went from acting to directing, it took years for people to be like, he's a really good director. At first it was like, he's just an actor that's directing. And I refused to direct on ER because I felt that people would say, he got this job because he's one of the stars on the show. I wanted to go out and earn being a director. And so I shot a short film. Steven Spielberg was one of the producers of ER. I got my short film to Steven Spielberg. I got it to Mel Gibson. They then called HBO. There was a movie that they were getting ready to shoot called Rebound, about Earl the Goat Manigault, which took place in Harlem. And so Spielberg called HBO on my behalf. Mel Gibson called HBO on my behalf. HBO called me and said, "Stop having people call us. You got the job." And so it was important for me to start my directing career not on ER, because I wanted to show that I was a legitimate director. And so taking that and moving forward, but there was a lot of resistance in that. So by the time you go from being an actor, director, producer, and now you want to be an author, you can't imagine how people want to just invalidate you. And one of the first things that I said to my agent Raquel was, I don't want to just be a writer, I want to be a really good writer. I want to be a really good author. And so I don't want, you take that journey, and I've been blessed and continue to be blessed because I keep getting better people around me. And that's, really, really important. So that's my journey. And
by the heat, New York was choking the most. FBI Special Agent Janet McLean drove down to the Big Apple from Washington, D.C., where it was also hot, yet much more tolerable. She suffered through the slow roast of being in Manhattan because her trip was mandatory. Of her numerous visits to the city, it was the first time she had come to New York and hated it. what she hated most was her reason for having to come. This is how his novel begins.
So y'all need to go get a copy. I'm just saying.
So now is my turn to ask you questions. Eriq talked about the importance of craft, the importance of learning, and because I am steeped in just that, meaning that what did that get you ready for? No, what did I am talking, you know what it, the fact is, you know what that gets ready for. It's like when you go into Stop and Shop and you think about squeezing Charmin, so you buy Charmin, because it's in your subconscious, okay? So it's hot. What did that get ready for?
Summer.
Huh?
Summer. Okay. The cooler.
So a writer does not give you setting just because they want to give you setting. And a writer doesn't spend all this time getting you to understand how hot. This isn't a nice summer day where you go on the beach and you put on your bikini and you're feeling good. We have words like the devil. We have words like the torturous heat. We have words like the ungodly stench. And then we clinch it with the gorge of hatred. It is what is it getting ready for?
Something explosive.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. You are ready. And this is how the novel begins. And this is about craft. This is about craft. This is about the writer not slamming you back and front. It's just getting you in the mood.
Right.
You are in the mood. You are there. What else struck you besides that? So that's setting. And I teach creative writing. Setting is important. It's not a byproduct. It is integrated. It is integrated into the whole thing. What else struck you?
Word choice.
Yes. Definitely word choice.
Don't get too smart on me. We are going to get this. I mean, this is another level. This is right. Careful with the word. But what else struck you in that perspective?
I mean, for me,
That made you want to read it again?
for me, it's if I close my eyes, I'm there. I'm in.
Okay, so we back to setting. But she is writing a novel. And so the novel is about a story. So what's the story that's hitting you? Yeah. That is correct. And what is the protagonist's problem that you would want to read? I mean, this is a nice trick, Eriq. This is some nice trick. I love this trick. I love this trick. Does she want to be in New York?
No.
Why does she want to be in New York? I'll give you your word choice. Why does she want to be in New York? He used the word. It begins with, I love to do this with my students. M, A, N. Come on, you got to get M-A-N. D, A. What about his coming there? Her coming there. Did she don't want to go to New York?
For some reason.
But it is, you got it. It is mandatory. Here you go with word choice. You're a little too sophisticated. So once something is mandatory, I am going to read it. It is because this character has no choice. Now, we figure he's writing a thriller. So why don't you have no choice? So let's go. What's the next problem? That clinches off the first paragraph and has you hooked. Has you hooked. What was it? What she hated most was her reason for having to come. Now, if she's a detective, would she hate that the most? If she's a detective, would she hate that the most? I mean, you get ready, you want to put on your suit and go to somewhere.
Maybe it's personal.
Oh, there we go. He got an A. You got an A on both counts. It's good. It's personal. It's personal. It's a thriller, but it's personal. Thank you very much.
Wow. I didn't have to do anything.
So that's what he meant by craft. And that is what happens to me when a student rolls into my class and feel that they can write. And I said, there is a craft. You better learn the craft. If you learn the craft, you can write a paragraph like that. If you didn't learn the craft, you cannot write it like that. Because he knows what he is doing. He's not going to get you a nice show.
Yes. He's like, just keep talking.
So, tell us what happened that you felt uncomfortable.
Well, she asked, why did I begin the novel in the way that I did? Well, first of all, atmosphere is huge. And what I wanted to do, one advantage that I have of having multiple careers or multiple crafts is that I like to borrow from one to the other. This is basically, in some ways, this is influenced by Spike Lee's movie. So, Do the Right Thing. It was very important to understand it's the hottest day of the summer because that's going to create tensions. And we all know how we get when we're hot and there's the city, we know New York, there's also a garbage strike going on. So this is hot, it's stinky. There's a lot of racial discord, which we're going to get into later in the novel. So basically, it is pouring gasoline on your protagonist and asking them to walk through a burning forest. Will they survive? And so I think when you have that type of tension, you're always, I have a short attention span. So I write for me. I write for people like me. Like people used to tell me, oh, this is a really good book. After you make it past the first 100 pages, it gets really interesting. I'm going, I'm not going to make it past the first 100 pages. So I write my book. I come out the gate sprinting. And so right away, I want you to know that this is going to be something that's going to be tense. It's going to be uncomfortable. We're going to have a protagonist in jeopardy. And so now you get, and that's all in half of the first page. Now you get to decide, do I want to continue this journey, understanding these are the circumstances in which I'm being introduced to a character and into an environment. So that's why I wrote it that way.
Okay. God, I have so many questions. But let me get on this.
The
one in the back has
you have a question? Or you hold on? Are we finished with? You hold on. Can we? You want? Are we taking questions now? No. Hold on one sec. When we start taking questions, you will be the first one. Okay? All right. Good.
Promise.
Promise.
Okay, the thing about a thriller is that plot is important, and it may be primary. However, what interests a reader, what keeps a reader reading, and by the way, I agree with you that I write for myself. I hope that because I am thrilled by what I write, other people will be. I write for myself. So the plot is important in writing a thriller, but there's a slippery slope that you go on if you focus on the plot. So, what is more important to you, plot or character, or do you make a connection between it?
Wow. Great question. Look, I'm an actor. I come from character. Because character is investment. A character is, like, for instance, guys, how many times have we gone to, a huge $200 million film with all these special effects, with all this budget, all this advertisement, and it doesn't work. And then we go and see an independent film that was made for $100,000, but we're invested as humans. We are invested in characters, whether that character is a human, whether it's an animal, whether it's an inanimate object, whatever. If you set it up right, the investment in character will make us want to go on a journey. Then the next stage is to make that journey as bumpy and as uncomfortable as possible, so that we can say, oh no, I want them to win. Oh my God, that's what gets you invested. And that investment is what keeps you coming back. And it also is what resonates with you. So when you're at the end or in the middle, you're like, oh my God, this is something that's bad. Something bad is going to happen to someone that I'm invested in. And you don't have to like your character. You don't have to like every. You don't have to be in love with every character. When I played Peter Benton on ER, I made a choice. I'm not going to make him always likable, but people were invested in him because he was always trying to do the best that he could. So even if they didn't like him, so you don't have to write characters that, oh my God, we love. Of course, that gets you farther, but there could be complex characters. You take a character like when the hospital show House was on, like everyone hated him, but they were invested in him at the same time. So investing in character will get you through the bumpiest of journeys. The bumpiest of journeys will raise the stakes, and that's a major thing in writing.
And that is it. That is it that you have to learn. And I wanted to add that to me, which you do incredibly well, is that you create the character, and the character has to have a desire. One, you have to get the reader to care for the character. And by the time we're finished with this first paragraph, we care for the character. And we have a sense of the character's desire. And then the writer can do whatever the heck they want. Because it's the plot is the character's journey into the your father. But I think that man,
No, the
there's
young
a
lady,
chance.
we have, we were
You're cute. You want to have your question now?
No, that's, yes. You're gonna have to shout it,
Or you want to come up
or
here?
you wanna come up?
Oh,
No, but
you
she can
just-
come up. She can
No.
come up.
Oh, she was just saying, speaking to the mic more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Eriq is giving you guys a master class, right?
First of all, thank you for
Can't hear.
Exactly. See what I want?
Yes.
So you did a very good job of sharing the human condition with us. You explained to us how people, even when you're accomplished, will pigeonhole you. You did a very good job of saying that you had to prove yourself in a new industry, with a new set of skills. And it was really important to you to get to basically stand on your own two feet. You also taught us about allyship and why it was important to have even people like Steven Spielberg and others speak for you. The thing that I wanted to really ask you is, you clearly have a North Star. You clearly have a spirit within you that speaks to your resilience and your ability to persevere in spite of doubters. And I would like you to share with us, where did that North Star come from? Where did you get that spirit so that you can, the match can like other matches to keep us inspired as other writers so we can keep going?
Well, I think, for me, first and foremost, I'm blessed because from the time I was 14 years old, I found something that I was in love with. So I do think that that's really, really important to pursue things that ignite passion, determination, tenacity. And when you have those things and when you dream big, and look, I don't get into discussing or telling people what their faith should be. I can only speak on my faith. And I don't consider myself a religious person, but I do consider myself a spiritual person. And I do feel like I try to follow what I believe in God. I believe I have a very traditional Christian sort of belief system. And even though I'm not religious, I believe in the structure of Christianity. And I don't care what a person believes. Buddhism, I don't care. It's your actions. And so my faith tells me that we were put here to do big things. And I think the world tries to beat that out of you. And particularly when you are female, particularly when you are of color, it's just indoctrinated that don't dream big. And look, we have to start having honest conversations. We have to have honest conversations. Listen, my mother, I was raised by a single black woman. So you talk about inspiration, you talk about North Star. I mean, you guys know what you guys do as black women. And so something that I've learned, and especially working with Raquel and Yona and the people on my team, I always say, if you want to accomplish something great, partner with a woman. If you want to accomplish something impossible, partner with a black woman. That has been, so I was bred, I was raised, I was cultivated by a black woman who, and ironically, my mother did not want me to be an actor because the world taught her to fear those types of dreams. So I'm inspired by having these young kids here now, and I had an opportunity to meet them and take photos with them because they need to hear that it's okay to dream big. Yes. They feel auntie's love and mama's love, and so that's, so like my mother tried to discourage me, but it was out of fear. It wasn't out of a lack of love. She wanted me to go with working for, the big aerodynamic company that Pratt & Whitney, those were good jobs. They were safe jobs. I kept dreaming. The good thing was once she started seeing the effects that acting had on my school grades, on my discipline. She knew whatever it is, it's good. So she would threaten, if you don't clean up your room, you can't go to drama practice. And you know what I mean? So she learned that way. So I just encourage us to ignite that and we have to have honest conversation. And that's how you plant the North Star in the next generation. So.
Wow. Do you have another question? Yeah.
I have enjoyed this question. First of all, I want to know, are you a plotter or a pantser?
Am I a what?
Plotter or a pantser?
A plotter or a pantser?
Pantser. A pantser. That's a term for writers that.
No, but the fact that I don't know, and I'm not that. That was your answer. Well, a plotter or a pantser? I'm a plotter, I get. I'm a pantser. I'm a pantser dancer. Yeah. A plotter or, you know what, you learned something? Thank you.
No, I'm never looking.
Okay.
That's right. Also discovery writer. They can so many like people
Well,
when you write this character, right, do you have insight in this there? Does it come to you right away, or is that something later?
well, I'm sorry, guys. Can we just keep it down a little bit so everybody can get, guys? Can we keep it down a little bit? As far as being a plotter or a pantser, which I will be using like I created it. But y'all gonna be watching me do like some interview on TV. And be like, he ain't even know what that was. Well, you know, this is Spielberg. I like to think of myself as a pantser. That fool didn't even know. So listen, I start off with what do I want to say? I think it's about what is your point of view of the world? What do you like? I want to write about things that resonate. And I want to, as an artist, it's my responsibility to have a strong opinion about that. So I want to share, like, this book is about, how do I say it? It's about hate crimes, it's about anti-Semitism, but it goes deeper because it's really about tribalism. It's about the tribes that we are born into. It's about the tribes that we choose. And sometimes the tribes that we choose are hate groups. Like how does the tribe that we choose, does that help mankind? Does that help the human condition? Or does it take away from it? And so I have very, very opinionated ideas about tribalism. The book is about the odd and very interesting, complex relationship between the African American community, which is an oppressed community, and their relationship to the Jewish community, which is also an oppressed membership of mankind. So for me, we have this weird relationship, but we both know about discrimination, and yet we discriminate against each other because of our tribes. And so I just thought that was an odd thing. So you start with a very interesting subject matter, and you say, what is my opinion about this subject matter? What do I want to say? It's really about what do you want to say. I'm sure a lot of your students come in, they don't know what they want to say. They just think that you want to write big. No, you want to write small in the sense of it's a very clear, you have to be able to explain your plot or explain your character in as few words as possible. That's when you know you're on something. When you have to do a monologue to kind of describe your objective, you're doing it wrong. So when you can do it in smaller ways, then you know you're onto something. So for me, it's, and so that will take me in different, I'm not organized to do the index cards and do the plot. I've never worked that way. I go, I think it would be really interesting. And again, borrowing from certain films, which I tend to do in some thematic way. So the opening of the book is kind of borrowed from Spike's film. Okay, there's a major part of the story, and it's the B plot, where you have a kidnapped Jewish man who's racist, imprisoned in a basement with a black man from Harlem who's racist. And the only way they're going to survive is if they figure out how to work together. So that's the B storyline. But that is borrowed from The Defiant Ones with Tony Curtis and Sidney Poitier. So that's what I love about how I come to this industry, of the publishing industry, the writing industry, because I come as I'm cinematic. I'm an actor, I'm a director. So I look at movies, that would be, even if it's just a theme, even if it's just a section, I don't, the only thing from school, from Do the Right Thing that I borrowed is the hottest day on record. What happens? And so that's how but it's really about ultimately, what do you want to say? And so many people want just the big picture thing, but they don't know what they want to say. And I would imagine you deal with that.
Two things that struck me. One of them is when Eriq says, I have a point, and this is what I want to say. I think he's kind of cheating himself a little bit because I agree with a starred review that he got from Kirkus, which ended, the review ended, that this is a gripping thriller that could have readers pondering right and wrong long after they're finished. So I think this is what a gift that a good writer gives a reader. A good writer gives the reader their position, but writes it in such a way that you are pondering and wondering whether, that position is right or that position is wrong. It's something that I tried for myself. People want to say, well, what did it happen in the end? And I said, well, the ball is now in your hand. I've done my part. You figure it out. The other point, you have to wrap up. The other point that I want to make, because I think this is a very important point, because my mentor was John Oliver Killings, the African-American writer. And he used to say that you can't write a novel. You may start off writing, this novel is about, and it may take 2 pages. And then you have to figure out how to make it 1 page. And then you have to figure out how to make it 1 paragraph. And then a couple of sentences. And when you have that done, which is 1 sentence, you're off to the races. You're off to the races. So sometimes in one of my novels, I wrote like 100 pages, and I said, my God, I don't even know what I'm writing. And I went through that exercise. And once I found the diamond, I start page 1. Start all over again. So this has been exciting.
Very, very
I
exciting.
am very honored.
I'm honored to have you. Thank you. And she makes me seem a lot smarter than I am. So we're going to keep you near.
And this was a joy, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, guys. One last thing that I just want to do, because I mean, this festival, got rained on. There was a lot of pivoting. But in the midst of everything, you still find these things that I just discovered this word, or not discovered. I just heard it, and I talked to Alice yesterday about glimmers, because I was talking about triggers, and I guess glimmers are the opposite of triggers. And even in the midst of all the obstacles and things not being perfect, there were some beautiful glimmers. And for me, I just want to pass this on. The greatest glimmer I had are these 3 young people here. And I just want to give them back. Thank you, guys.